Okay, welcome everybody. This session is called Introducing at the Curb. Most aspects of driving can be introduced and practiced for the first time at the curb. Do you agree or disagree?
Agree.
Okay. And if you disagree, maybe in this session we'll convince you otherwise. Not all aspects of driving, but most aspects of driving you could actually introduce at the curb before they even pull out. Okay? So we're going to go through the different exercises and ways you can do that and why it's actually important. Curb intro allows you to explain and have students try the theory without the added stress of being out in traffic. Why put ourselves, as instructors, and students under additional stress? It is also a distinctive way of teaching, which will separate us from other schools. That's already good enough reason. Less stress, doing something different than what other people are doing, right? Because there's the right way to do things, there's the wrong way, but then there's got to be the Ferrari way, right? So there's a few different ways to do things right, but if we all do things in a distinctive way, then we separate ourselves, then we can justify a higher price. Then we show the difference between another school, between learning from their friend, from their father, from their cousin, whatever it is, right? First thing you need to do is find a parking lane that has at least 2 car lanes. So, what does that mean? If you're picking up a new student on Steinway in front of the office, does it make sense for them to jump behind the wheel and you try to take off?
No.
In that first half a block, even if your intention is to like, yeah, we're going to drive around the corner and then I'll really start there, you're better off you driving that half a block, starting in the proper place, because that half a block, I mean, who knows what could happen, and I'm sure it's happened, right? Like you try to make things happen quickly, cars double park, okay, get behind the wheel, let's go. And it's like, whoa, and the person's totally not ready for it. Or even if they are halfway ready, they're probably not fully ready, right? And it just doesn't start off on the right foot. Drive around the corner. Guess what? The lesson starts when you're driving around the corner, because already you start talking, right? What do? You start breaking the ice from the time that you get in front of the office to, say, 38th Street, or where you may probably have at least 2 car lanes to do this. You already start talking. Hey, why do you want to get your license? Relevant small talk. Relevant small talk. Has anybody been reading the papers lately? I mean, we always knew what was inappropriate and what was appropriate. But now, more than ever, we have to be extremely careful. Even if a student initiates personal questioning, and hey, you got a boyfriend, you got a girlfriend, oh, you're looking nice today. Like, you too. Oh, I like that dress. You don't need to comment about a dress, or the pants, or whatever. Okay? Keep it relevant, please. Relevant small talk, even if the student is the one being on the offensive, so to speak. Because guess what happens when something goes, they fail the test or whatever it is? That's the first thing they're going to complain about. Because we are the professionals. We are the ones that have to hold the professional demeanor. Okay? So, what do you want to do? You want to find a place where there's 2 car lanes, because at least 2 car lanes. If you have more, even better. But at least 2 car lanes. Everybody understands what 2 car lanes is, right? It's a spot where not just 1 car could fit, but if you had 2 cars, you could put 2, right? But did you see what I just did there? I didn't assume you knew what 2 car lanes was. Even though I know we're all professional instructors, and I know that you know what that means. But that happens many times with our students. Oh yeah, I know how to drive. I've been driving for so long. So we're like, oh, okay, great. And we take things for granted that they know certain, even like basic things. Give you a short story. Son of a driving school owner. You would think, between learning to drive from my dad, some of the veteran instructors, Victor, Mike, all these veteran instructors, you'd think that, they would have covered the bases, right? I never knew how to fuel the vehicle, and I didn't really feel confident with where my blind spot was. So what did that mean? I spent the first 6 months to a year, every time I was changing lanes, turning my whole head around, taking my eyes off the road, because I didn't really feel confident knowing that I only needed to look there, and the rest I relied on my nerves. Pretty basic, right? it slipped through the cracks. Fueling up. I never was taught how to fuel up. So what was I doing for the first half of the year? Because I was embarrassed to tell anybody? Paying full price.
Paying extra.
Paying extra. How many of our students are out there right now paying extra? Because we never took them to fuel. You know, a pretty basic, silly, almost silly thing, right? Trivial. But why not make it part of the training? My point is, don't let anything slip through the cracks. And this is also another reason why I created this and why I wanted to review this with you. On a side note, in general, you're going to notice how I am phrasing things, okay? It's always best to ask and not tell your students. We have been told what to do from our parents, from our husband, from our wife, all the, you know, and we get that irky feeling when we're told what to do, even if it's the right thing, right? And learning to drive is a frustrating, nerve-wracking thing. You combine all of those elements, and you could have the best intentions, but you could come across the wrong way simply because you're telling your students too much. Another thing that happens when you tell your students too much is you're not allowing them the opportunity to create the brain pattern so that they can come up with their own assessment. Because you told them. If I tell you, I didn't give myself, if I didn't give the student a chance to, or if I tell you here in the session everything, I'm not giving you the chance to see the value of some of these parts. So I'm going to put things in the form of a question. Because that forces in human nature, when we hear things with a question mark at the end, we want to know answers. We want to know that we know. And if we don't know, we got to think. And that's what we're really training people. We're training people to think. We're not training people to learn how to drive. They can do that with video games at this point. They can, do that with friends and family. They can learn how to drive. What the real value of professional training, please silence your phones if you could. What the real value of training is teaching them what they should be thinking about, when they should be thinking about it. Because that is going to keep them collision free. Learning how to drive, they're going to be able to do eventually, with or without you. Did we train them to think about the hazard or the things that they should be doing? That running checklist in their mind, because things happen in your mind before they physically happen, right? And the physical part, that takes practice, repetition, but let's make sure that before we even get to that point, that we've instilled the right questions they should be asking themselves. That's really the real value of you guys. Don't forget that, okay? So keep that in mind as we run through this. Number one, what's the first thing we do when we meet a student? How you doing? Nice to meet you. My name is, right? I don't care how rushed you are, even how late you may be running. Take that half a second to compose yourself. Okay. How you doing? Right? It means something. Oh my God, okay, let's go. Come on. Sometimes I see you guys outside because the cars that will park and all that. At that point, you're already in front of the car, right? Take that half a second. Compose yourself. How you doing? Nice to meet you. Right? It's going to mean something. I know that you're rushed and there's stress there related to it, but just take that half a second to do that. After you've introduced yourself, we have an opportunity to instantly teach something that they probably don't know. Which is what?
Changing tires.
Have them walk around the what? The front of the car or the back of the car?
Front.
Why?
So they can see oncoming traffic.
So you can see oncoming traffic. Why else?
Check your lights. Make sure inspection, registration, everything's up to date.
Okay, yeah, when we come around, that's correct.
Hello, everyone. You got 10 lines here.
No worries. We're recording, so we're trying to keep this as short and sweet as possible. So you come around, but what do? The first thing that we have an opportunity, right? Because you're going to greet them at the curb, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the first thing you can do? How you doing? Nice to meet you. Let's take a look at our tires. How do they look? They look good? Anything blocking them? No glass, nothing like that? How does the tire pressure look? Oh, it looks good. Okay. That's the first thing you want to do. You want to walk around the vehicle, and you always want to check that. Right? You come around the front. We always want to come around the front, so we're facing oncoming traffic. right? Nothing hanging off the front of the car. Sometimes, you know, these cars are plastic now. These things, they just come, you know, they just start hanging off for weird reasons, right? So nothing hanging off the car. We walk around the front of the car, and we get to the windshield. What do?
So the inspection and registration.
And why do we do that?
Because we already start educating the responsibility as soon as you get behind the wheel for any time you get behind the wheel.
So you mean me as a driver, I'm responsible? This is your car. Why am I responsible for this?
Because when you're sitting in the seat, you need to let them know that they're responsible for anything that may or may not happen with the vehicle. They understand that they're liable, so to speak.
Right? So anytime you get behind the wheel of a friend's car, what should you do?
You should know that you're 100% liable for
Right? You should do the walk around. Just make it a habit. Always do the walk around. Always come around the front. Always check the registration and
I want to
inspection.
go one step further. Your boss's car. Many people, the boss made me do it. It means nothing. The girlfriend, the neighbor, the rental, even the driving school car. Believe it or not.
Let me ask you something. And this is where, like, when you found out why they want to get the license, right? Oh, I want to get the license because of work. Guess what? I got something to impress your boss, or when you go for the interview. You ready? When they give you that car for the first time, you walk around the car, you call it out. You say, tire pressure looks good, nothing blocking the tires, nothing hanging off the front, inspection is good, registration is good. Whoa, they're going to be impressed, right? That's something maybe CDL companies are more accustomed to. But hey, why shouldn't we be doing it with a car? Wouldn't that be impressive for a boss to hear? You know? And that's why finding out why they want to get the license is important, because then you could start connecting the dots and making things mean something for them. Not why it's important for you or why it's important for our driving school. Why is it important for them? Because then it'll resonate with them. Okay? Open the door when you safely do so, and show them where they can see the vehicle recommended tire pressure. We all know that it's actually written right there. Has anybody noticed that? Most cars, right, have that. What else can we do? Right then and there.
I know the seat levels.
Here's the seat lever. This one moves it forward, this one moves it backwards. Well, actually one moves it forward and backwards, right? The other one does what?
Raises the backrest.
Yeah. Now why do we want to do that right there and then? Because if you get them behind the wheel, now you're on the other side of them, right? They don't know how to change the seat. Are we going to go like this and do that for them?
No.
Or like get into their personal space with your hand? No. Right? We don't want to do that, ever. We want to avoid that at all costs. So there's an opportunity, right?
We sue.
You know what's going on right now, okay? So, now, and then what do? You close the door for them. Wow. You've made such an amazing first impression right there that instantly they're like, okay, I see why I'm paying more money than other schools. Already, I see, oh, this is my guy. This is my instructor. This is my lady. She's going to really take me to the promised land. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, so moving right along. Now we're in the car. You come around. You're in the car. If you haven't already, you're breaking the ice. If they have a heavy jacket, you may want to ask them to take it off, because you do get warm, and then you get like that added stress and I get anxiety. I can't stand wearing it. Even in the dead of winter, when I have a coat on, like after a few minutes, I got to take the coat off because it's like drives me crazy. If they don't want to take the coat off, don't force them, don't press it, but just make the suggestion, right? We always want to just at least make the suggestion. Okay. This is a good time. Yes. This is a good time to ask them, if you haven't already, their driving experience and why they want to get their license. Regardless of their experience, you should listen well. Always respond energetically and give in confidence that you will help them achieve the goal. I don't care why, I don't care how long. Give them out. I'm your guy, I'm your lady, I'm going to make this happen for you, we're going to make this happen. Right? Give that energy. Not, okay. Give a little something more than okay. You know what I mean? No problem. We're going to get you there. Doesn't take much extra, right? But makes a difference. Makes the impression. Now, what do we want to do? We want to adjust the seat. We always want to adjust the seat first. Why? Because if you start adjusting mirrors and then you adjust your seat, your angles just changed. Am I right? Okay. So, if anything you think is out of order, please. This is not written in stone. We can always we always can take a little arrow and move it from one to the other. So please, if there's anything you think is not correct or could be in a different order, please let me know. But what are you looking for when they adjust their seat? Can their feet reach the pedals? Number one. And then if they're tall, are their knees hitting the dash? That's kind of like, the visual cues there, right? What else are you looking for? Anything else you're looking for when they're adjusting the seats, or is that pretty much what you do as an instructor? Yeah.
If their arms reach comfortably.
Okay. Yeah, get your hands in the steering wheel. How does that, are you too close to it, right? Adjusting the rear view mirror. Back to the seats for a second. If they can reach the pedal safely, should they be a little closer to the steering wheel or a little further away?
If they can reach it, then they have to go closer to it.
Let's say they're reaching already. They feel comfortable, but it seems like they could go back a little bit further.
I would say go back just a little further.
Maybe try it, right? Why?
Because if they're up too close and a collision happens and the airbag pops out for any reason, I feel like being too close would impact them in a negative way.
Absolutely. Do you know what makes an airbag go off? Gunpowder. Basically, have an explosion, a controlled explosion happening in front of you. So, and this is more of an issue when you have a shorter driver. They gotta get up really close. That's why sometimes if the seat can do that little elevation, sometimes a lot of these seats they can go up in the back. That's important because then that raises them up, and then they feel less of the need to get super close. But keep that in mind. Get them as comfortable as they need to be, but mention this because, hey, shouldn't they know that there's an explosion happening in front of them if that airbag has to be deployed? So educate them on this. This is important, okay? Especially as new technologies come about in the vehicles. These are things that people not necessarily know, or maybe they don't know to what extent, right? Okay, adjusting the rear view mirror. Would you say that be the next thing? Would you do the right rear view? It's important that you adjust the mirrors from the position that they will be driving from. If they're leaning forward, the angle will change. So if you do this, does that make sense?
Yes.
No. You got to be in your comfortable driving position so that you only need to do an eye move. You should never have to do that. If you see them doing this to look at the rearview mirror, or going up to look at the rearview mirror, that's your visual cue that they didn't align their mirror with their regular driving position. Okay? So, something super easy that we can take for granted that could slip through the cracks, right? As much as possible, if you could explain the why, not just adjust your mirror so you could see the rear view of the rear thing, yeah, of course. But if you don't tell them why you want to do it from a certain position, it could just go over their head, and now they're just like, for the rest of their driving career, they're always doing this. Something silly, right? Could be avoided, okay? Next, what do we want to do? Adjust the side mirrors. Explain where the controls are and have them move it themselves so that only a little of the side is in view. Really like the door handle, right? I mean, what are we looking to see? Just a bit of the door handle. We're not looking to see that much of the car at all. Okay?
The rear door handle.
Yeah, if it's a four-door, the rear door handle. So what's a question you could ask them? Because you know how I love questions instead of telling people things, right? So what's a good question when they're looking at the mirror? What's a good question you could ask them?
What do you see?
What do you see? Do you see how much of the door do you see? Oh, I see a lot of the door. Okay. Try seeing a little bit less. Try seeing a little bit less. Did you notice how now you can see more of the left? Oh yeah, I do that. Okay. How far back can you see? That's a tricky one, right? Because it looks good, but maybe it's aimed too far down. And now they're seeing too much of the pavement. Oh, how far back can you see? I can see only about a half a block. All right. What about if you move the angle up more? Are you able to see more further back? Yeah. Oh, look at that. Great. If it's too up in the sky, same thing, right? you can't see any of the pavement, that's not good either, right? Because that means the higher up it is, your blind spot actually has increased, right? As cars pass, you can mention, right? They're doing it, just that mirror check. As cars pass, you can mention what? What? Yeah, you could just throw it out there. Did you notice how after a certain point you couldn't see the car as they were passing? Yeah. Where did they go? Did they just disappear in thin air? No. They disappeared and then they reappeared. Right? You could just mention it. That's your blind spot. Very soon, in a few minutes, we're going to go over that. So it's like, oh, you start getting like these tidbits like, oh, there's more knowledge coming. I can't wait. Can't wait to learn about the blind spot. You know what I mean? You're not going to necessarily go into blind spot right that second. Maybe you just throw a little tidbit out there that it's coming very soon. Okay? What else? What's next? We put on our seatbelt. If they're having trouble reaching the belt, tell them to pivot in their seat to find it more easily. You know, somebody may have a shoulder injury, or if they're just car is small compared to them, or whatever. They just never did it to the side. Don't assume, or if you see they're struggling in any way, a good way to reach the belt is pivot in your seat. So what does that mean? Pivoting in your seat means in this case, you're going that way. You could use the steering wheel as leverage, and you just change your angle just like that. 5% angle change makes it tremendously easier to grab that belt. And I'm going to talk about that, how that's also important when you teach backing up. Okay? We'll get to that in a second. So you see how I just enticed you? Like, ooh, there's something, a new trick about how to back up. I just threw you out a little something there, right? Now you're kind of maybe anticipating there's going to be something that I'm going to learn about that, right? So anyway, next, let's adjust the steering wheel. Maybe you adjusted the steering wheel already. Maybe you did that already. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe when you did that, adjusting the seat, maybe that was the next thing you did. I don't know. If you do it in one way or another, I don't think it's too much of a big deal. I feel you should do it now because I want to use that as a segue. I want to use that as a segue to teach the controls. And I want to do that with hands on the steering wheel because there's things you're going to teach that you need to have your hands on the steering wheel to be able to do. So I want to show them how to adjust the steering wheel. And these are questions you should be asking yourself. Is the steering wheel rubbing on their legs? Is it aimed too high up towards their face? Have them make the adjustment. Again, remember that the steering wheel is an airbag, so being too close or if it is aiming too high can cause injury if deployed. It's basically gunpowder opening up in the airbag. Okay? Can we move forward? Am I good so far? Okay? Next section, explaining the controls. Since they have adjusted their steering wheel, it's now a good time to show them the 9 and 3 position. All right, let's put our hands in the 9 and 3 position. So what do we have here? And I just ordered one each for you guys. Okay? All right, so they're coming, they're on the way. I wish I had them for you today, but close enough, right? So let's, this is going to be actually me with the steering wheel. Oh, okay, you have the steering wheel, right? 9 and 3 position, right? I'm the instructor. Okay, so put your hands on the invisible steering wheel. Or maybe you just say, you bust your little thing out, right? What's 9 and 3? Just like a clock. Don't assume they understand where this 9 and this 3 came from. Not everybody knows Army terminology. You know what I mean? Don't assume. We're going to, just like a clock, right? The clock has the 9 here, the 3 is over here. Okay? That's the 9 and 3. Okay? And why is 9 and 3 the modern way of steering control? Because
Gives you full control.
gives you more control, gives you more turning radius. What else?
Balance.
Balance. What else?
Airbags.
Airbags, so that you are keeping this area clear. The old way of 10 and 2. What happens when you turn? With a very short turn, your forearm is now blocking what the airbag would have done. And if you get into a collision right here, and that thing gets deployed, your arm is gonna hit you in the face.
Break your nose.
You know, there's nothing wrong with explaining that. They're never going to forget that 9 and 3 is important. They're not going to do that. Maybe you can avoid that guy from being this guy just by telling him that story. You know? Don't just say things, oh, you got to do it because I told you. Give them the why and why it's important, because there's science behind it, right? What else can you show them? So now you got your hands on your steering wheel, I got mine. What else?
Ready control in case of a flat tire.
Okay, yeah, I guess that goes under the better control. What else is the reason?
You can use the signal. The signal and controls.
Okay, so did you see what I did, how I didn't tell you? Oh, look, I could have told you, you can also beat the horn there, but what did I do? I just gave you like a little clue. Oh. Did you see what I did? I just started like playing with the space where the horn is, right? So I gave a little clue, but I allowed you to tell me instead of me just telling you. Right. Okay? So now the horn. The horn. What else did we say? What else do we have? With our fingers, without taking our hand off the wheel, what else can we do? Signal.
Windshield wipers.
Windshield wipers. All can be done while having maximum control. Okay? High beams. There's a good time to show high beams. How do you know a high beam is on? Blue light. Blue light. Don't assume they know. Don't assume. Right? Windshield washer fluid. Isn't that important? Especially this time of year. That salt kicks up on your window. Especially at night, it gets super hazy. So, using that windshield wiper fluid is important. And hey, if you have time, open up the hood and show them where it goes, because that's something pretty simple that they don't have to go to the shop to be able to do. I think that's something that everybody should be able to handle. Opening up a little thing, pouring in the blue fluid, closing it. So hey, why not? You could make it part of the training, right? So let's continue on. Dashboard, right? Where and what is the tachometer? What is a tachometer? Measures RPMs. RPM stands for? Revolution per minute. So that one means it's going 1 per minute. What does that mean? It actually stands for 1,000. Okay. I don't know how technical you want to go there, but hey, why not? How long did that just take us? Less than 10 seconds? But isn't that something that, by the way, every other country, when you're going to go get a license, they test you on these things? I know they don't do it here. But does that mean that we should be just doing what the bare minimum is, or should we be preparing people for life? For life, not just the test. And hey, don't feel like, remind the students why you're going over some of these things. I'm telling you this because I'm not only going to prepare you to pass the road test, but I'm preparing you for life. Oh, okay. Now you justify why you're going over these things, when meanwhile they're like, oh, I want to just go, I want to go. No, I'm preparing you for life here. So I want to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. So when you got a student that's like, I know this already, hey, no problem, Mr. Student. If you know it already, we're going to go through these things quick. Not going to waste your time, but I want to be sure that nothing falls through the cracks. It's important for me that you are clear with all of these things.
So, okay. So what else does a tachometer do?
Yep.
What else does a tachometer do?
It powers the engine, measures the power to the engine, from the engine to the wheel. Okay. Also, basically, it's the crankshaft, how fast the crankshaft is rotating.
Good. All right. And how else can you apply that towards your training?
The RPM test.
Yeah.
Very often you're teaching stick shift.
For stick shift.
Critical. It's a big part of learning to drive stick shift, right?
RPMs is when you're winding up the gear to shift into the next one.
Okay. So, continuing on. So, what does the arrow mean next to the gas gauge? Don't tell them, ask them. There's an arrow? Oh yeah, look at that little arrow. You know that I didn't know that for years?
What's that? You didn't know what the...
You know there's a little arrow next to the gasoline pump icon? Did you ever notice that?
No, just the red... Oh,
there's
it
a little
tells you
arrow.
the side.
Yeah.
is the, yeah.
Right? Isn't that silly? You know,
Mine
like,
has one, I don't think mine has one.
they all do.
Or
You just
the-
never notice
Or
it.
it'll say fuel on, like an older car, but it's usually
Yeah,
the
they got the arrow. They all do. It's like, it was like one of those things until you realize it, you never see it. But isn't that important? When you're gonna go fuel up, I still don't remember what side it is. My memory is just, these kinds of things I don't know, I have a very poor memory for it. I have to look every time. I pull in the gas station, I'm like, okay, right side, okay. You know what I mean? So, teach them this. Teach them where that is, okay? Alright, so what else we got here? Do we have any ask them? Because again, it's about them formulating the thought pattern. Do we have any warning lights at the moment? No, I don't see any. Okay, if you did have, sometimes, we have a car, it's got the little check engine light. Right? Okay, oh yeah, I do see something. What is that? Oh, that's the check engine signal, right? It looks like there's like block, this engine block, right? What does that mean?
I don't wanna see
Like
that.
a wrong check.
The car needs some service. So, okay, can we drive today? As long as we don't notice anything else, we'll be okay today. But if you notice anything else, something to look at. Should we go to the shop right away? Absolutely. Should we check and make sure that there's oil in the engine? Absolutely. So if you as an instructor have a light pop up, what do? Oh, okay, I gotta bring it to the shop, I'll do it as soon as I can. Yes, but what else should you do right away? Check your oil. Do we have oil? We've had instructors seize engines here.
Oh,
Embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for you. And who takes the paycheck, the hit on that?
yeah, but how
The
does
school.
that happen if you have a sticker on the dashboard, on the windshield?
Maybe you had an oil leak.
Okay,
It's
alright.
possible. It's happened. It's happened. Maybe you're driving the car, more often, and there's reasons why it could happen.
So at what point can you guys check the oil? If you wanna get lazy, let's just say for the sake of it, you don't like getting under the hood. How can you make sure the oil's checked?
Sometimes you should check every morning before start.
Once a month, just,
But most people don't think that way.
Hello.
But let's
You
think,
point at me.
No,
Let
no.
me give you the hand.
listen to this. What's the easy way to check it?
Okay. That's what I do.
what did you say?
The rest,
He checks it every morning.
yes, sir.
What
Before you
else,
start.
how else can we make sure it's
Before you
checked?
start, when you start, the oil is going in the money, you don't know the level.
How
In
long?
the morning, wait, in the morning.
Oil every morning?
Yes, ma'am. Because it's set all night.
That is true what he's saying.
It settles.
Not uphill and not downhill, flat.
That is
This way
true.
you see the gauge, it's up.
That's going to give you the most accurate read on your oil.
Vibrates.
Yeah, once the engine
If
starts
it's uphill or
vibrating,
downhill, it doesn't work.
Right.
When do you check it? Before you start?
when it's cold, that's the ideal time to check the coil. That is correct. Should we teach people that? Isn't that a nice little something that maybe half of you guys didn't even realize
Where
yourselves?
I was going is, why don't you make it part of the lesson? Do you
Yeah.
know how to check oil on an engine? Or do you want to know? The student, you're telling the student.
That's the story now. You asking me something else. Wait a minute.
Okay?
He was asking, when do you
You
check
asked me when. Wait.
All right. So,
And at the very least, Mike, because this is
yes, go
important,
ahead.
as I see all the repairs and the things that are going out. If all else fails, every time you use our fuel station, have them check it. Yeah. Check the oil, please, while you're fueling. Why not? Do you know, I was training some instructors, we went there, and it was below the fill line.
All right. Keep it flowing. We are at what? What part are we up to?
Dashboard,
Dashboard. What else? Anything I missed on the dashboard that we should mention?
the warning light. Oh, you said the warning light. That is, you don't assume that they know of it.
Okay. In general, right? Don't assume that they know all of this, even if they have driving experience. Okay. Yes.
Temperature of the car.
Temperature of the car, where that gauge is, or where that indicator is. That you should stop the car right away, right? If you get a high temperature warning, you need to stop that car immediately.
Oh, the speedometer.
You could mention the speedometer, right?
In America, we use miles per hour. If you're traveling to Canada or Mexico, they use kilometers per hour.
There we go, or Europe, right?
Yeah.
Hey, why don't we throw that out there? Don't assume.
Speed maintenance between 20 and 25 with down now and then.
Oh, okay, all right, you could mention, maybe you want to mention the speed limit there, okay. I'm fine with that, okay. So, let's move along. The controls, the shifting controls, right? Are we in park? Instead of telling them anything, maybe you tell them where it is, but you could just ask them the question, are you in park? You do so, yeah, we're not moving. Okay, well, how do you know? Right, we're not moving, I see the P. Okay? Which gear makes the car go forward? Ask them. If they know the answer, it's going to be 2 seconds. It's going to be 2 seconds, but guess what else you did? You made them think, and you kept it interactive. Because if you go through all of this, and you are saying everything, it could get boring, and it could be like, oh, I know this, and I just zone out. No, but if you ask them the question, they're engaged, it's interactive. Interactive training has a 80% absorption rate compared to lecture. What did I just say?
Interactive training has an 80% rate as opposed to lecture.
Got it. What did I just do?
Engaged.
I engaged. What else did I do?
Ask a question.
But why did I just ask that question?
So they can just stand there and
And I also wanted to be sure that you heard me, you understood me, and you could recall. Some of the reasons why our students are not driving as well as they could be, or there's certain basic things that they should have grasped already, is simply because when we introduced the topic, we told them, we assumed that they understood, and then when they got out and did it wrong, they physically did it wrong, but where did it happen wrong first? In their mind. Because we did not train them to think, right? Yeah, and in order for that, they needed to retain and understand before retain. What does the traffic control do to the pilot? Okay, flight 409, you are clear for takeoff. Go ahead, pilot.
Guides and directions.
They repeat.
Repeat it.
What do they say? So they
Copy.
say they don't say copy.
10-4.
Nope.
You say the number of the
Because
plane?
10-4 to what?
Oh, you say the number?
Maybe the signal broke up at the last second. They
That's
repeat the whole
Then
thing
they
back.
go, okay, you say your number of the plane and then you repeat everything.
Yes, flight 409. We read loud and clear. We're gonna, clear for takeoff. Whatever, something like that. So when you explain something difficult or foundational, right? Something that we're gonna build a house, or not even a house, a skyscraper on, which is learning to drive, right? This house of driving. Don't we want to make sure that the foundational principles are understood, or the theoretical concepts are understood? So if you just spoke wisdom, right? You just gave this 20-30 second, really important knowledge. Don't you want to make sure that your breath wasn't wasted? Ask them, what did I just say? Or maybe you want to say, what does that mean to you? Okay? Especially when there's a language barrier. Super critical. Do people want to feel, how do people want to come across? How do we want to come across? We want to feel like when people say things that we understood them, we get it, right? We want to know things, right? Nobody wants to feel stupid. Have we ever nodded our head yes, be like with confidence, and then 10 seconds later we realize, I don't even know what this person just said. And guess what we usually do? We're too embarrassed to say anything. So a learning opportunity slips through the cracks, that simply. So ask them, what did I just tell you? And now they repeat it back to you. But guess what they're going to do? They're going to say it a little bit different. They're not going to say it exactly as you did. But as long as it's the correct, way of thinking and the correct brain pattern before they're doing the physical action, fine. But if they say something in a different order that you think is important, guess what you just did? You had an opportunity to correct the thinking. And you really want to do it instantly. You don't want to wait for this, we're making rights, and every single time we're doing a right, it's the same thing. Same thing, short right. Because now you just allowed them, we wasted time, but we did some repetition. And guess what you just reinforced? You just enforced the thinking that was creating the short right. So that's why it's important to ask them for clarification for what you just told them. So critical. This will go such a long way and will make your life so much easier. Okay, if you do that. And that, you can apply that to everything. If you're giving your wisdom, your breath, which is very valuable, ask them to repeat it back to you. I'm telling you, you'll be surprised what people say. Have you ever seen that they did an experiment where I tell Osvaldo one thing, and I say, okay, Osvaldo, I want you to tell the next person, and the next person, and the next person. And by the time you get around the room, what I told Osvaldo was completely different with a whole set of circumstances, people, and that's what gossip is, right? When people gossip, it's like you really don't even know what the truth is anymore. You don't even know where it came from. It's all this nonsense, right? Yeah, it's like the story got twisted around by the time you get around the room. So, and it could be so little, right? Just from Osvaldo to you, it could be just a little change. But now you make a little change. By the time you get around the room, the whole story is different. Okay? So don't assume. Let's check. Let's be traffic control talking to our pilots. Okay? What does the 1, 2, and 3 mean? On the shifter, what does that mean? First gear, second gear, third gear. Okay? When would you use these? What are these numbers here?
Different road conditions, if it's slippery out, or if it's raining, or snow, you need more traction.
Okay, there we go. Situations, right?
Downhill, maybe.
Downhill, maybe you're going to use it to use your engine brake, right? Okay, something that's very much taught in stick shift driving.
What does engine brake mean?
Yeah, see, I was just assuming you all knew what an engine brake was. You see how quickly we can make assumptions and we don't.
Excuse me, if you're not to drive a stick shift, you know what is that too?
I don't know how to drive a stick shift.
I learned.
What does the engine brake mean?
Engine brake or
Using the engine to help slow you down.
What's that?
Using the engine to help slow you down.
How do you do that? You activate it?
First, second, third, just gonna
By it being in a lower gear or one gear, that power band is only so long. So it's kind of a restricted motion. It's a restricted motion.
Okay? By the way, that coffee stain, or that the dust that's accumulated around the P, the R, do you know how much that dust and that dirt sticks out to that new set of eyes? Like when we were children and we saw the lion for the first time at the zoo, especially because animals, they resonate a lot with children, right? The first time you see it, the first time you experience anything, you are as open as possible. Your eyes, you're absorbing, you're seeing everything. So when there's that little dust and dirt in the cup holder and in the pee and in the first, they really they're looking at this for the first time, like you're actually telling them focus on this. That dust and dirt is going to stand out like nobody's business. Also part of the first impression, also part of the experience, right? How we present ourselves not only in the physical form, but our tool, our office, which is the vehicle, right? So, sometimes I get into the cars and it's like the car's clean, but then I see like the little crud in there, you know what I mean? Be aware of that. Because students are going to notice that more than us. For us, it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. We know it's there, so we don't even know it's there. It's like it just kind of blended in with the environment. Okay? So, what else are we going to do when we're talking about controls? And now we're by the dash. I'm sorry, actually I missed that. The emergency brake, so we did the shifter, right? Emergency brake, what does it do? Don't assume that people know what it does. What? So what does it do? Emergency brake does what?
Stop it.
Stop the vehicle.
It stops the car. What is it actually doing? Is it engaging what? The front or the rear brakes?
No, only the rear.
Only the rear brakes. Only the rear brakes. What situation would you need to use your emergency brake?
If your brakes fail.
If your brakes fail. Because it's an emergency brake.
If you're on a hill.
You're on a hill, you want to park it.
Well, make sure it's a neutral.
I'm sorry?
Make sure it's a neutral when you emergency.
If your brakes fail, the first thing you should do is put pump it into neutral this way and apply the emergency brake, right?
Don't you think that's important to teach our students?
But not quickly.
Do you think that every student knows that? Even the one that's been driving in another country?
Well, not even some instructors already know.
Some instructors are going, oh. So imagine our students, right? Don't assume. Yes? Oh, okay. Okay, so moving along, what else is in the dashboard control area? We have hazard lights. Okay, so hazard lights. What are those for?
For emergency. Or when you're parking on a road that you need someone to see you. So
Okay.
Or you're on a highway.
that's gonna alert other drivers.
You're on a highway and everything stops. When the car's coming, know that you're approaching a stop on a highway.
Short stop.
Short stop. Put your hazards on, let them know.
Yeah, you've noticed, because you aim high in steering, right? Because you taught your students to aim high in student. So you notice that, oh wow, there's something happening up ahead, cars, brake lights. But guess what? There's cars behind you. So now you're applying the brake, but hitting the hazard light button really quickly could help notify those cars behind you that, oh, something's happening. I need to start slowing down and be more attentive here. That could save a rear end collision. Just that. Isn't that like a nice slick, I don't know, I don't want to say slick, but isn't that like teaching people something like a smart skill? Isn't that like, feel like, wow, that's like a really high level, like, that's cool, that's actually pretty cool. Because that happens often. Maybe you come around a turn, right? BQE, Jackie Robinson, this happens super easily. You come around a turn, all of a sudden there's just like a standstill. So you came around the turn first, you noticed it, but those cars behind you have no idea. So maybe just them seeing your brake lights is not enough. You may want to hit that real quick. So there's a situation, that's pretty cool. I could use my hazards for that? Yeah, you could. And you should. Okay? Defroster. When do we use the defroster? Okay? When you have ice on the window, all that good stuff, right?
Even in the summer.
Even in the summer.
Condensation.
Condensation. Now we can flip it. Anything that I covered here make sense? Some things maybe you heard for the first time. Other things you knew and you know. But because we knew and we know, and we are the experts, what happens when we're experts? We take for granted that it's common knowledge, right? We take for granted that, or we assume that, oh, well, everybody knows this. Oh yeah, this guy's been driving for a while. I don't need to go over that.
A lot of times students say they've been driving for a while, they know, they just need to brush up.
Oh, I just got to do my parking. I'm good, I'm a driver. Right? You hear that all day long. So, if you go through these things and somebody knows it, you're done in 5 seconds. But if they don't know it, then maybe you have to spend 30 seconds on it. You know what I'm saying?
My suggestion is if they think they know it, point out the harder things. What are the lines in the back rear glass for? Those lines, what do they do? Things like that. What is neutral?
And how do you activate it?
You activate it. Just go straight to the more challenging things.
Absolutely. Give them a higher level question.
What is 3-2-1 for? When is it used?
3, 2, 1.
On the shift.
Oh, when is that used?
We just covered that. Who remembers?
Is that when you're on a certain roadway that you need
If you know six shift,
less power?
No, if you don't know six shift, it's fine.
It doesn't mean six.
Or you need, I'm sorry?
That day was snowing. Perfect example. That day was snowing 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys know this one hill in Corona where it's like a real steep hill that goes over the railroad track.
yeah.
The cars were spinning left and right. I had just finished training some guys there. I threw it in one, right up the hill and back down. Just keeps that one gear in the power band. So you can only go so far, okay, with that one.
So you
When you're in
go-
drive, the wheel tends to quickly accelerate. When you're in one gear, it only limits to that gear,
Okay,
the engine power.
okay.
All right. Are we ready to turn this car on finally? But look how much we taught before even turning the car on. Take the key out if it's not already. Hand it to them. Explain. Here's the ignition. You know.
How about, I'm sorry,
Yes?
how about the key in and of itself? There's a lot of stuff happening on that key.
Ah, I like that.
On the
Arm.
You have control?
I
No.
have them take the key
Yeah.
and I say, look at
The yellow.
this key, there's a lot happening on this key. What
A lot
are
of buttons
these
on
things
the
here?
key.
Yes, and they tell me that this is for lock, unlock, and then sometimes they can't make out the little thing there, and I
Yeah.
say, look at it real close, what is that?
Yellow.
Yeah, and then they realize it's for the trunk, and then the red button is for the alarm.
Panic, like a panic. You could be used as a panic button.
Exactly, I will.
If you have
also tell
somebody,
them
you know, you're it's late at night, it's dark,
There we
you're near
go.
your car, and somebody approaches you in a
That's right.
threatening way,
that. That's what I tell them.
you gotta wait it to scare them off
That's
now.
right, that's right.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool to know.
You're at the shopping mall, you got 5 bags in your hands, you can't find your car.
That's right.
On the holidays.
That's pretty cool to know.
Okay.
Because I spent an hour looking for a car here like just last week.
It depends.
I was like completely different. Okay. You want to know another extra thing, which is kind of weird. I don't even know why it works, but to extend the range of that thing, you put it under your chin. If you have any fillings, you put that thing, the button, under your chin. And from your teeth, it magnifies the signal. It's the craziest thing, but it actually
I'm
works.
good.
It actually works.
I'm gonna give you another one better.
Go.
Some remote keys,
Yeah.
they have, if you have a Viper remote,
Yes.
you have an app that you can download it and track it with your GPS from the phone. So it's even easier.
Some technologies have that too. Sure. All right. So moving along. Key in ignition. We explain now the first click. What does the first click? You feel the click? Click it over to the one position. How do you know you clicked it? You feel it. It sometimes actually makes a noise, but it's got a spot, right? It's not like an in-between. It's got a spot. And once you click it there, it stays there. It doesn't like just pop back, right? It stays there. What does that do?
That's kind
Gives you
of.
power to what?
Radio.
Accessories, right? What are your accessories? Radio.
Dashboard.
Dashboard.
Everything
What else?
dashboard.
Does it give you the cigarette lighter?
Yes.
Does it?
Yes.
Windows.
Yes, it does.
Windows.
I mean, you charge your phone, right?
Because, yeah, you put it.
There's two levels of
Yeah, but this is just the one we're
the
talking about.
first one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now, what does the second one do? Yes.
I don't suggest anybody that study and then use all the charging the phone and all the.
Yeah, but in
How
some
long the
cases.
battery's gonna go?
Yeah, but in some cases, you're charging it for a little while. You're sitting there. You want to at least explain people what it does. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Yeah,
What
you
does
can-
the second click do?
You can teach them what it does and teach them also, or let them know that that's gonna drain their battery, so.
Yeah, you're gonna mention the battery, trust me, you're not gonna not mention it, of course. So what does the second click do?
Drains the battery.
It drains the battery more so.
Yeah.
It gives it more power.
Why?
Because it's second level of accessories.
It also has engaged your what?
Your,
Windows, I think, that one is the Windows.
Oh, yeah, the-
Starter as well.
Starter, okay.
It's actually engaged your starter.
If you notice, that second click also blows on your fans, if you have any fans
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
The first is just current, second is mechanics, actually starts spinning.
So now when you go to now you're in the second, which can drain your battery very, very quickly. This is not, you're not going to want to leave the car like that. It also will turn your headlights on. That second one turns your headlights on. And that's where you're really going to drain the battery very quickly. Now you're going to actually turn the car on. But explain to them
The
before.
first one does too, Michael.
The first one turns the headlights on?
Not, I'm sorry, not headlights.
It's the auxiliary ones,
Yeah.
the parking lights, yes. But the second one will actually turn on your headlights if they want, okay?
Right.
Alright, so now we're going to actually turn this car on. So explain to them. Now we're going to turn it to the third position. You're going to hear a noise. That's your starter. Listen for it. And once you hear the boom, the car's up. Now, a lot of these cars are much quieter now. So you don't hear, it's not as much of the visual, not as much of the sound and feel as you used to before. You knew when a car would start, huh? It was like, boom, they roared. Now they're very quiet, and these electric ones is a whole other story.
Push to start.
You don't even know if they're on or off. It's like this. Yeah.
I think push to start. Some newer cars have push to start.
Some of them have push starts, right? All right. So how can we damage a starter?
By holding the key too long, then the gears will bind with the teeth on the flywheel. Then the pinion on the starting will down.
Okay.
Those are gears, and it will rev more faster than the starter.
This guy knows some stuff. Okay. He's teaching me some stuff.
My students are gonna be the best, I'm telling you.
I like the attitude. So, isn't it important to know this, number one, ourselves, right? Should we move along? Okay. Throttle control. Now that the car is on, now we get to some real good stuff here. Okay, everything else is kind of like important, but now we're going to get into some really good stuff. Throttle control. Now that the car is on, should we get moving? Car's on, let's go. Let's go, right? Not so fast. Don't you want to know before getting on the road if this student has a heavy foot? Let them get comfortable with the accelerator. Ask them to look at the tachometer and press enough gas to bring it to 2,000 RPMs and hold it. Now go down to 1,500 RPM. Now back to 2,000. Now off the gas and apply the brake. Now back to the gas and bring it back to 2,000. And what are you doing? You're watching. As this is happening, you're watching. You're asking yourself these questions. Are they planting their heel in between the brake and the gas? Or are they lifting their whole leg, which is the heaviest muscle in the body, which has a lot of power? And when we're scared or nervous and we're doing something for the first time, we can overreact. Right? So you're watching for these things. Why do we want to experience this for the first time at the corner? It's not necessary. Do it from the parking space. Less stress. More of this situation will allow, if there's an issue here, you can address it before even getting out on the road. The leg, again, I talked about the leg, right? And the pivot technique. Now, why is the pivot technique important?
Lift the leg each time, you'll get a trolley horse.
Okay, fine. What else? Why else?
You have more control and it's quicker.
You have more control, and it's quicker. Why do we want to be able to move from the brake, from the gas more so, to the brake quicker?
Road situations change.
Reaction time is everything.
It affects your reaction time. Your reaction time is what? It's made up of 3 parts. What is it?
Eyes, brain, hands.
Something happens. A hazard happens. The time that it takes our brain to tell our leg or our foot to take our foot off of the gas. That's part 1.
Now, what I was thinking.
Part 2 is how quickly do we move our foot from the gas to the brake. Part 3 is how long does it take to stop the car from the point that we started applying the brake to the car stopping. Do you know that that pivot could save a half a second? Do you know how much further a vehicle could go in a half a second?
Or save a life. Or save a life.
It also depends on your speed. That's also why they've reduced the speed limit for things like this, because if somebody's going 20 miles an hour and something happens, to get the car to stop is at least 20 feet. 20 feet is a life or death thing when you have that kind of hazard. Explain this to the students. Look at what you just talked about in 20 seconds. That didn't even take 20 seconds. Don't assume. Don't assume, because now it becomes all relevant to when they get out on the road. Okay? Alright, so, does this make sense? This whole, who's using this technique? I know some people are using it. This little exercise at the curb. Has it helped? Because we've introduced this already a few years ago now. Has it helped?
Yeah.
How has it helped?
A lot.
Makes you think.
It makes who think?
It makes you, the driver, the instructor, think.
Okay, it makes you think about what you should be looking for.
Right.
And the student?
It allows them to engage by you thinking of what needs to be said to them, or it gets them thinking, in order to get them to also retain everything.
If you're trying to teach braking when they're out on the road and they need to stop, there's so many things happening. There's sensory overload that it's too much multitasking at that moment. And for a beginner, it's too much to absorb and retain. So why not break it into these incremental steps? Let's train the thought pattern first. Then when they get out on the road, they're going to be able to have a better handle and grasp on it. They're going to be able to get to the point where it's more happening in a subconscious manner with the way an advanced driver does it, right? We don't even think about it because we just know it and understand it. But don't assume that they know that, okay?
Become a good habit.
We're trying to train a good habit before a bad one appears. And if there is a bad habit, we want to be able to compartmentalize and find it so that we can really get through it. Not when they're out on the road and everything else, and it's even harder to even figure out sometimes. You ever like after a while you're like, I can't understand what's going on with the student, and then you finally get that moment where you're like, oh, I see what's happening. It's not what they're physically doing wrong, it's what they were thinking about to get to the physical part. So again, focus on training the thought pattern, the physical part will come. Okay? So, moving along. I've had one instructor that he was putting his seat further back while he was instructing. I asked him, why are you doing this? He said, well, he had a pretty good reason with the mirror, because it's easier to see the rear view mirror. Then he said, also, from this position, sometimes the students, they have a heavy foot, and when they brake hard, you get some extra neck pains. And I said, okay, are we doing the acceleration brake test from the curb? And then I believe, now that he's been trying that, that's made a difference. So there's multiple reasons why this is a good idea. Let's get him jolted around in the car, right? Let's move along. Braking and threshold braking. Now that you have confidence that their foot control is ready to move the car, we should explain what will happen next. Explain that you need to press the brake in order to select a different gear. You want them to get comfortable with the brake only. Press the brake, select D for forward, and slowly take your foot off the brake. It's important that you have found a spot that has at least 2 car lanes to do this exercise. So you want to be as far back in those 2 lanes as possible, because you want to now move forward. That's the first actual movement that you're doing. Okay? As the car starts to roll, and you want to explain to them what you're about to do, because it may be the first time that they're literally moving the car. It's like the moment. So just give a little explanation of what's going to happen. Okay? As the car starts to roll forward, you can tell them to slowly squeeze the brake again until the car stops. Now, why did I throw that in there, which Oz gave me the good suggestion the other day, because before I said press the brake. I was saying I had in here terminology, press the brake. Because when you tell somebody press the brake, they're going to press the brake. Because they don't, the concept of smooth braking, threshold braking, they have no clue about that. and they're like, braking is like, oh my god, I gotta stop the car. I don't know why he's telling me to stop the car, I gotta stop the car. That's what they're thinking. But you tell them to press the brake, it's like, okay, there's a different tone. So the tone and the choice of words you use before acceleration and braking, does it make a difference? Makes a big difference, right? So, moving along on that. Okay, here we go. So, releasing the, okay, so as the car starts to roll, move forward, you can tell it to slowly squeeze the brake until the car stops. Right? Now that's your first opportunity to see how well or how smoothly they brake. Okay? The odds are it's going to be less smooth than they would like. But by using the word squeeze, the odds are that it's going to be better than if you said press. Would you all agree? Or if you said brake. The tone that you use is going to make a big difference on how they respond. Sometimes you may need to say brake. Stop. You may need to say that. So, be aware of the choice of words that we use. Okay?
And to describe the word, how you want them to do the action of brake, accelerate, smoothly brake. Right?
Yeah, the word before brake
means,
makes a big
if you're
difference.
telling them to do it now, so smoothly brake, depending on your tone and the descriptive word, how you're describing what they should do with the verb, whether it be accelerate, turn, how much they should turn, right? Because there's increments of how much they should be applying so much to the controls, whether it be brake, gas, steering, right? Recover. Now let's slowly recover. Slow down. But slow down is good, but brake is a word. Slow down is a descriptive word before brake. Like, let's slowly brake. Let's apply the brake. Slowly apply the brake. So ways, rather than just saying brake, and every person who's brake, they're going to brake.
If you had a place where you had more than 2 car lanes, even better. Because now you can do it a few more times. You can do the taking the foot off the brake, rolling forward, okay, smoothly. Taking the brakes, rolling forward. You can do it even more. But it needs 2 car lanes, right? So you basically want to go as forward as you can until you run out of space. Okay? Be aware of your tone again and words before using the word brake. And now, this is a question I have for you guys. What visual cue do you want to now instill to tell them to brake? Because you always want to have to say brake. Sometimes you want to, after a while that they've been practicing, don't you want to use visual cues?
Yes.
So isn't this a good time to teach them on the visual cue that you plan to use? So what visual cue do you use when you want somebody to brake?
Reference any car or any object.
No, what do you fit a visual cue? What do you do with your
lights
hands?
in the car in front of you?
No, like you as an instructor, I want to know, like, what are you using? Your students driving. You want them you want them to apply the brake. I was going to say hit the brake. That ain't a good word to use, right? Hit the brake. What do I want to tell Mr. Student here in order to apply the brake? He's driving along, singing his song.
You don't have to say anything.
Your point?
Okay, yeah, if I don't want to speak anymore, but I want to give like a little visual cue, what can I do with my hand?
A hand gesture, yeah.
How? What can I do?
Open hand.
Open hand? Like
Stop, like a
like
sign for a
almost
stop.
like a stop sign?
Kind of.
Okay, I mean, what do you guys think? You guys think that
Gesture
makes
down
sense?
a little bit. It's kind of like
What's
slow
that?
down.
That's like a slow one? So that's like kind of like a,
Yeah.
right? Like, you want them to just slow down. So if you go too fast,
Yeah.
they may think you want them to hit the brake. Maybe if you do it, which you may, but if you want them to just like ease up off the accelerator, right? So you teach them that. Listen, right off the bat, these are some visual cues I'm going to give you further along the way. This is going to mean stop or apply the brake, right? Because stop is like a pretty, stop. If you want them to stop, you're going to just tell them to stop, right? You're not going to really. But if you want them to slow down, yeah, you're going to do right. What else? So it's really like that to slow down. What about maybe accelerate? Don't you need to tell them to hit the gas sometimes?
Yeah.
Go! What do you do? What can you do? Maybe that.
Yeah.
Right? Can we all agree on those 3 things?
Yeah.
Because if we got on the same page with that, right? We want to be distinctive. McDonald's is distinctive because they do things the same way. The hamburger tastes the same here as it tastes in California. So people have confidence in In that when they go, wherever they're gonna go, the Big Mac's gonna be the same. That's why people go to McDonald's, because they don't want the surprise. With a driving school, with changing of instructors, these little things do make a difference. So if we can all agree that this is gonna be apply the brake, this is gonna be go, this is gonna be slow down, we already are getting ourselves more in line.
Kind of universal, like hand signal.
You know what I mean? It's something so silly is gonna create less of an anxiety about the changing of an instructor.
Usually you don't even have to tell them what that means. They're gonna
Usually
understand
not, because right, I think it's like pretty, it's, I think just teach sign language, it's pretty basic stuff, you know, but if we use it, it's also a way for us not to be so wordy. Sometimes we don't want to talk all the time, but we're still communicating.
And that gives
Because
the chance to
communication
think.
happens not only in what we say, but how our body language is going, right? So we can use body language a lot to communicate. Let's move along. All right, so how are they braking? Now this is questions you ask yourself. How are they braking? What's it? I need a time check. 4:30. 4:30. Okay, we have a half hour maximum. How are you braking? How are they braking? These are questions you're asking yourself. Can it be smoother? Explain to them why you're doing this exercise. Very important you explain to them why you're doing this, because some students that are antsy, they think they know it all, are going to potentially get a little flustered if you don't explain why you're doing it. Okay? And why is it, what is it, why is it that you want them to do this? I already gave you a good response, but you can give me another one.
Teach them to stop in the right way. Don't slam the brake with it.
The right way is like,
You don't want them to be nervous.
yeah, you want them to be an elegant breaker. One that your passengers are going to enjoy riding with. Isn't that kind of cool? Oh yeah, like people want to actually be in the car with me. They're not going to be like having stomach pains. You know what I mean? Isn't that something like as a goal? Like that's like a real life thing, right? That's a real life thing. So everybody wants to be an elegant breaker, a smart driver, all these things. So let's explain why we're doing certain things, because by doing this exercise, you are going to be that driver that could have the cup of coffee on the dash and ain't going to spill. You know, like those, what was that movie that had the driving examiner had the coffee up on the dash? You know, that's like the old thing. Everybody, I don't remember, License to Kill or something, License to Drive, right? Yeah, that was a good one. Anyway, moving along. Okay? Threshold braking. I mean, why not talk about what threshold braking is right now? You can introduce it. It's the best time. The car is moving so slowly, it's the best time to be able to teach threshold braking. What is threshold braking? What is threshold braking? Anybody? You know when you brake so smoothly that the car never does that at the very end?
Okay.
That little it just kind of just stops. And it's like there's no lock. That's threshold braking. That's the ability to brake and stop the car without the okay? Now's the best time to teach it and introduce it, because they're not moving and everything is like calm. They're only using the brake and the engine, they're not pressing the gas at all. They're just using the idle compression to move the car. So there's very little to think about other than threshold braking at this point in braking. So why not introduce it right now and then? Threshold braking, okay? Can you stop the car from a pretty high speed and still at the end not lock it?
Yes.
Yes. Because it's actually not how hard you press the brake up front. It's what you do at that last 2-3 miles an hour. When the car is like just about to stop, and you just kind of like smoothly, we all do it, right? Or we should know how to do it. On your ride home today, try threshold braking all the way home. Like every time you bring the car to a stop, just try the exercise. Sometimes we forget it. We're not even doing it ourselves. But it's a pretty elegant way of stopping a car. And as a driver, I don't know if you ever noticed it. Have you ever gotten more nauseous as a passenger? Like my dad cannot drive in the backseat of the car, and even just being a passenger in the car for him is like he gets like nauseous really, really quick. It's crazy actually, but the point is that a lot of people deal with that. But when you're a driver, for some reason you could take turns and like you could brake firmly and it doesn't really bother you. But when you're the passenger of the vehicle and you're doing this abrupt gassing and braking, it affects you much more. So especially if somebody's planning to be a professional driver, oh, you're gonna be driving with Uber? Here's a little something that's gonna give you a better rating. You ready for it? Threshold braking. Now you just made it relevant for them. You just opened up their ears, their eyes, and it's like, I'm paying attention. Oh, this is important. You get what I'm saying? So that's why you want to know why they want to get the license at the beginning, because then when you get to these points in the training that you can connect the dots and make it personal for them, you do it. It makes a difference. Let's move along. Driving in reverse. So we've just gone as forward as possible in this parking lane. We stopped, have to put it in park. Now that they've gone as far as possible, now I'm going to teach you straight line reversing. So tell them what you're doing. Don't just be like, okay, now put it in reverse. No, like present it as a new topic. Now I'm going to teach you straight line reversing. Oh wow, that's important. I need to know how to do that. Okay? Remind them that their eyes need to be looking in whichever direction the car is traveling, always. Okay? If you're moving forward, you're looking forward. If you're driving back, you're looking back. You're not using, even though I know but we are supposed to be looking in whatever direction the car is moving. Okay? Ask, if they're reversing, can they just use their mirrors? Just like, quiz them. Can I look, maybe you just, instead of saying, see how I just gave a statement? Maybe you want to flip it on them and say, we're going to go in reverse. Do we use the rear view mirrors, or do we have to turn around and look? I bet you half of your students are going to say, I can use the mirror.
Use the camera.
The camera, right? You guys, with the new cars, sometimes we got to put our hand there, right? Make sure that they're using the right thing. So train them the right way, and then, this technology and blah, 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 but you need to be looking back, because that camera thing is kind of also, your field of view is very narrow.
Blind spot.
There's blind spots. So there's a good reason why you shouldn't just use the camera. Maybe the last little second, or to look to see the adjustment. Maybe you can use the camera, but the look back needs to physically happen.
And a good habit to instill early on, I think, when reversing, is only go back as far as you have to clear the spot. Don't get happy going in reverse.
Use one hand on the wheel and another one like that.
Go back only as far as you have to.
You can turn the body.
I say when putting in reverse for 3-point turn, I say minimum between 5 to 10 feet to go back. And it's all brake control. And I also tell them when I'm teaching parking or 3-point turn, unless you're on a hilly street, that most of it is all brake control. And when reversing and teaching them brake control and reversing, turn completely around and look.
Right. So, do you remember earlier on when I talked about what's an easy way to, now I'm testing you, right? Making sure, because that's another thing too. Just because somebody got it the first time, don't assume that sometimes they may forget it. So you want to circle around information and do a double check that they got it, right? So now I'm going to do a double check on you guys. Remember when I said about pivoting the seat? When did I say, when would you pivot to the left?
You say for the seatbelt.
For the seatbelt, right? So now, why would you ever pivot to the right?
For reverse.
For reversing. It's very, very difficult to stay completely straight and do this. I mean, I don't know, in my head, unless you're an owl, it's not comfortable to do that, okay? And, if you have any physical issues, it's not easy. So, what can you do to pivot to the right?
Move 5%.
How? Steering wheel, what else can you use? You know that little footrest to the far left? You can use that to push off a little bit. If you push off a little, it makes it very easy to turn. And all you need to do is just a little bit sometimes. It could be literally like less than 5 degrees. And it's enough that you can now physically look back. Whereas if you do this, it's nearly impossible. Okay? So that pivot is very useful. Okay? So. Alright, so we talked about we're talking about reversing here, right? Okay, so many students have the physical issues looking back, so we talked about the pivot. They should now have, okay, you tell me this. Do examiners want you to have both hands in the wheel when you're reversing, or are they okay with putting that right hand on their thing?
They're not okay with it.
They are.
I gotta have
They're
both
okay
hands on
with
the
it.
wheel.
I've had
If you're
an
comfortable.
inspector tell me that going like that is invading their space, because a lot of the time they lean forward.
They're all up in your business.
Yeah, they lean, they come into the space of the inspector. So when they've done that in the car with me, I say, don't put your hand like that and come towards me. Just turn around.
Some inspectors may have an issue with this.
Yeah.
I've heard it.
They're okay with it.
They're allowed one hand on the wheel.
What if they go ahead
With the both hands and the.
You know, most people can't turn around and up now.
Yeah.
I was thinking one hand on the wheel, you gotta do it some way, you have to.
But if it's-
Are you gonna fail that test?
They're comfortable. Some people do it, some people don't. But it's not necessary.
If they put their hand behind the seat and it's awkward, and it's not really comfortable, they don't really know what they're doing, then the examiner does.
Also, when you put your hand back there and you lift up your body, you change the entire view of how you're parking, and it might affect your parking.
Definitely a little pivot's gonna help. Even if you're gonna put your hand back there, a little pivot is gonna help either way. You know, I've heard examiners have an issue with it. It's a rarity, but we've heard some issues of that in the past.
What did they say exactly?
They kind of didn't like that the student was like, you know, the student is kind of like, you know, they're right.
Well, then he wasn't doing it right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Or in the meantime, they give him a whack on the way in. Hit him in the head, I don't know. I'm just saying, you know, you have potential issues that could happen.
It depends on the student, right?
Just throwing it out there. Maybe you have them try it both ways.
Oh, absolutely.
And you say, hey, you may get an examiner that doesn't want you putting the hand on the thing. Let's try it now this way. So now you give them another tool in their ammunition, right? Why not? Right? We're only selling time. We're only giving value for the time. As long as you're giving value, don't feel like you can't show them different ways to accomplish the same thing. Right? So, moving along. Ask them to put the vehicle in reverse and slowly remove their foot from the brake. Is the car going in one direction? How can we adjust it? So in other words, if the car starts veering from one way to another a little bit, that's a great time to teach, you know, how you recover that. What do you need to do? If a car's going to the right, too much to the right, you want to bring it more to the left, what do? Show me. Show me, Mr. Instructor, with your nice steering wheel now, that you don't have to touch theirs, or to touch it much less. You whip out your toy, and you say, what? If I'm going in reverse, and now, like, you know, sometimes you don't even notice that the steering wheel turned because your body turned.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, why is the car going too much to the curb? What do I have to do now?
Turn the wheel in the direction you want the back of the car to go.
All right. So I want it to go back. I want it to go that way. So I'm going to take my simulated steering wheel without having to go to theirs, and I'm going to say, okay, so I'm going to adjust this way. All right. And now, guess what you can have them do as well? You could have them do the same thing without even moving the car. Okay, show me the same thing. Okay, touch the steering wheel, have it, turn your steering wheel to the right and look back. To the left, rather. Okay, so now, which way would the car go? It would start veering which way? Towards the curb or away from the curb?
Away.
Away from the curb. All right, so now, if we want to straighten it out, what would we do? There we go. Now do it the other way. Turn your hands a little bit this way. If you were going in reverse, and the car would head towards which way? Towards the where?
Curve.
Towards the curve. So what would we want to do to adjust it?
Turn it to the left.
Pull with your left hand down, maybe. I don't know, you could say that. But isn't this helpful? To like show the visual cue, and then you do the visual cue, now do it for me. And you check it. You check that they've got the visual representation you just did. Okay? So next. So now, you know, have them go backwards. If you had a lot of space, even better, because now you can do some start and stops. Now you see how they brake in reverse, right? So you go like 5 feet, they brake again. All right, let go of the brake. Let's keep going back. All right, brake again. All right, and you do that as much as you can. This way you can see how well they control the brake in reverse. Isn't that important to know? Yes, sir.
In reverse, at least in newer models, in reverse gear, you don't need to touch the gas.
Oh yeah, we're not even touching the gas yet. I don't know if you've noticed that. You should have noticed that, but we haven't even touched the
Oh,
gas
brake
yet.
control.
We touched the gas when we did the tachometer test, right? So we already have confidence enough that the person is not going to zoom off on us. You know what I mean? Because we did it enough that we saw, all right, they felt the RPMs, they heard the noise. They're not going to like hear the noise and panic in any way, right? People do that. They hear that tachometer the first time, and they're like, oh my God, they hit the gas even more. I mean, it's like, it's happened. I'm sure we've all experienced it, right?
To go back
Yes.
to the threshold braking, they would tell you, put
Yes.
the car in reverse and it's a gear and it picks up speed. You can control the car, stop.
Absolutely.
Let it go, let it roll, slow the car, stop.
Exactly that.
Teach them how to control the brake by going in reverse.
Exactly. That's part of braking, right?
Yeah.
All right. So make sure. But now you've gone as far back as you can. If the first time of going forward they were having a heavy foot, then maybe you should go forward again one more time. But if they picked it up well, you don't think you need to do this a second round, then don't do it a second round. I don't want you to be wasting anybody's time. I don't want people to get bored. I don't want them to feel like you're kind of. But if they didn't do it too well, or maybe you didn't have enough distance, maybe you only had a few feet and you could only do it like once or twice. Maybe you should go back and do it a second round, right? So now you go forward again, and then, okay, let's go back again. Because repetition creates retention. Isn't it good to keep reminding them why, when we do things, it's like Mr. Miyagi, right? When he was telling Daniel's son, paint the fence, right? He had to paint the whole fence, and Daniel's son was getting pissed off. He's like, this guy's got me just painting his house. He's got me here just like fixing up his house. Not seeing, not recognizing the connection or the value of the repetition. And then only when
you fight.
Yeah, it was like him.
Yeah. Are you here for the class?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're still having a meeting at 5 o'clock if you could come back.
Oh, I
Yeah,
forgot.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. What time is it? Pancho?
4:45.
Okay. So then what happened? Then Mr. Miyagi said, all right, show me sand the floor. Show me paint the fence. Show me what's the other? Wax on, wax off. And then it was only then where Daniel's son realized, oh wow, this repetition was important. But guess what? Daniel's son already got pissed off. So don't students sometimes get pissed off when we do things too much sometimes?
Yes.
Because we didn't explain the value of the why we're doing it. So always explain why you're doing things. Because it's gonna eliminate any misunderstanding. I'm doing this with you because. This is important because. You understand? It's so important because otherwise people that don't understand, I just want to drive. No, I'm teaching you driving. We are learning. You see, and then you could even ask them every once in a while. You say, did you see how much you've learned so far about driving? We haven't even moved yet. Look how much you've learned. Remind them. You get them to say, oh yeah, I'm learning a lot. Yeah, you moved the car yet. And they're learning a lot. So they're not going to get confused with them. You're not wasting anybody's time here. You're not wasting anybody's time. Okay?
Do the parking.
Yeah.
Left side.
I'm not actually going into parking yet. Today is only about leaving the curb and the start. Parking is a whole other animal. I don't want to even, because that's like, you're doing that after a while. I want to keep this very simple today. Things that we could really apply right away, and things that we would do. This whole topic is introducing at the curb. We'll get to that in another session. But today I'm keeping it very simple. Okay?
And how many times do you get a chance to make a first impression?
Yeah.
Yes, count. First impression is the best.
All right.
You get the
So,
first impression well, we got it.
That's it.
If you want to buy a suit.
ready for number 8? Who's ready for number 8? What's number 8?
Steering control.
Okay. This is a good time to simulate turns and steering control. So, use the steering wheel. At first I was going to order you Frisbees, but then I ended up finding these guys. And Frisbees were like $12 each, and then I found steering wheels for $3. Like, just like this, with the little fake plastic.
That's it, every car.
Yeah. And then if you end up needing one to fix your gooey steering wheel, then let me know, I'll get you another one. So anyway, steering control, right? They're almost ready to pull out into traffic now. Would you all agree? We cover a lot here, okay? Now, should we teach some steering control? Why do we want to let them experience it for the first time at the corner? Or even just pulling out? And then we can say, you don't know how to steer. No, we don't want to. Another reason why we're going over these things at the curb is I'm not looking for you guys to zap people. That's not how you get people to take more lessons. That's not how you convince them that they need more lessons. That's not how you really resonate and connect with them. When you have to tell people you did that wrong, or you gotta like prong them with the electric zapper, you know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like you put them in a situation knowing that they're gonna screw up, you know what I mean? I know when you're gonna put them in a trying situation when the person thinks he's a know-it-all. I know the value of that, but I'm talking about the beginner. I really would prefer if you don't have to zap people, because that's not really fun to get zapped and pronged, and people don't want to spend money for things that are not fun. People will spend a lot of money on things that they're enjoying, and there's no reason why they can't enjoy learning to drive. We could avoid some of the zapping. Okay, so this is another reason why we simulate at the curve. So you pull out your steering wheel, all right, and tell me if I got this wrong here. So now I'm going to teach you hand over hand. So let's do hand over hand. All right? You're probably not going to be able to go further than that, right? Like what I did like 2 turns. Yeah. So now you're holding the steering wheel, right? Now maybe you want to ask them, if the car was going in drive, which direction would the car go?
All the way right.
All right. How do you know that?
Because you turn 1.25 right.
Okay, I went right. But I went right.
Yes.
So if the car was in reverse, which way would it go?
It would go against the curve.
Towards the right also.
Yes.
Right? So now let's do let's recover. Now we're going to teach recovery.
Yeah.
Right? So now I'm recovering the wheel.
The other way.
Did I do that right?
You did it right before, now you gotta go left.
Okay, sorry about that. See, I'm not even paying attention. Okay, hand over hand, recovery.
Yes.
Okay? Does everybody agree? I basically just explained hand over hand.
One thing I want to stress, you got to be conscious, because when the wheel is against the curb, if you are too close to the curb, you will break your steering rack.
Yes.
Because if just by dry steering, staying in the same, so make sure, instructors, that you have 3 or 4 inches, maybe 5 inches from the curb to give it allowance to spin. A lot of people, you even see it outside sometimes. People are
you hear the thing rubbing all
that
up.
will break a rack. And these Corollas are all electronic.
Yep.
A couple of guys, I think we replaced 5 or 6 already. Probably for that same reason.
Yeah. There you go. Right? Isn't that a valuable little tidbit of information?
Yep.
So now that you've shown them the demonstration, all right, Mr. Student, let me see you do it. Let's turn the steering wheel to the right. Okay? Let's go to the left. Maybe you're not going to have to do the whole, don't do the whole rotation. I would just do a few, because in most cases, when you do hand over hand, that's usually in a turn, that's usually as far as you're going, right?
Should be 1, 2, 3. Right,
No,
left,
you
right.
never count.
Left, right.
You never count.
The most it should be is 3 though. 'Cause
Yeah, you're never going
you
to.
need to oversteer to the left, or you're gonna go to the cars that park.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're never even going to, the way I demonstrated was actually too much, probably, right? Because you're never going to really do that. If you're going to be doing a full
You
break,
can slide the wheel on your hands too.
you're asking me or you're telling me?
It's illegal.
Is it legal?
Yes.
That's, in
Yes.
my opinion, that's a lack of control of the
Yes.
steering wheel.
You mean when you press the gas and the
you
wheel
take
goes back?
hands off the wheel, on the recovery,
Yeah.
he took us in gender stairs, like stuff.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
control your steering wheel.
But would you say you still kind of like, you let it
No, you
slip
see
through
what
your
it
fingers?
That's the only wheel.
Okay, there we go. So you can teach like letting it slide through your hand.
Still keeping their hands
But
at
don't
9,
count,
at
because
9.
not every
As
corner
new
is
instructor,
the
you should
same.
teach them, keeping it at 9 and 3 o'clock,
Yeah.
all the time. Even when you're making a turn, bring those hands back at 9 and 3. When you press that gas and the wheel comes back, their hands are right there to recover. Not go like this, and then let go.
Okay, so my point is, shouldn't we introduce with a tool, have them do it? Go ahead, let me see you do it now, Mr. Student.
Right.
Now I'm watching, right? I have still my steering wheel. Don't worry, don't worry. I still have my steering wheel. If I see I need to, let's do it together now. Let's do it together. All right, stop. Let's go the other way. Stop. Let's go the other way. Let's counter. Okay? Do it till you feel that they've gotten it. Alright, so now, I don't know, do you want to introduce push-pull? I mean, why not? Let's teach them all the ways you could drive a car, steer a car. So now, show me, how would you teach, let's switch seats here. How would you teach push-pull?
Me?
Yeah, explain it. Explain to me push-pull.
I would just do hand over
Okay.
like that.
What is push-pull?
I don't really particularly like the push-pull way of
I
saying
don't-
it.
okay.
I would just say hand over hand, me personally.
Alright, is it the same thing?
I don't,
What?
I just
No.
learned.
Is push-pull and hand over hand the same thing?
No, that's like when your hands connect, right? You go like this.
Push-pull is,
Like feeding.
push-pull is, yes. Push-pull is the feed, right? That's, look, you see how my hands never crossed?
Too much attention.
So that's,
Too much,
you can explain. Hand over hand is when your hands cross over each other. Push-pull, they never cross. See how you're pushing and pulling? Pushing with one hand, pulling with the other.
Is that
Push,
acceptable?
pulling with the other, pushing with the other.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Yes.
Some students pick up on that more than the hand over hand.
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause
I usually
Isn't it
say
good to
it's
show them both
both
ways?
ways. Show them both,
Shouldn't
yeah.
they know how to do it both ways? Different situations call for either way of steering. Why are we introducing or explaining the ways, and then from there, the situations you'll figure out which situations make sense to do either or. But let's show them the different ways. Show them, do it, demonstrate further if you need to, let's do it together. Now I'm not going to do anything, let me watch you do it, student. Alright, I feel confident that you got it. Enough that I feel confident enough that we're going to pull out of the trap. They're not perfect hand-over-handers, they're not perfect steerers, but they're not going to get their hands fumbled anymore because we just did it enough times that I feel confident that they, at the very least, got to that point.
I usually try to tell them like the zone defense, because it's like the hand stays in the area, like the zone. Unless there's like an emergency, then you would go,
Okay?
because I guess most people are familiar with the zone defense.
I don't like sports. I don't even know what you're talking about.
I find.
I'm just saying, like, be careful. Like, maybe you got the young kid, you know he's a football player, or you know he likes football. Maybe you can use that analogy, but just be careful with analogies that are like
That are
very
sort of centric. to
Yeah, like
sports.
sometimes, like, I don't know anything about football, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, so just be careful that sometimes we're almost with a meeting, just a few more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, just wait a few more minutes, if you go way upstairs. Thank you.
What's the zone? I like sports, I didn't understand the zone.
It's like you stay in a certain area, like you defend a certain area rather than.
No, I know what zone defense is, but how does it apply? I didn't understand.
Like the right hand has its zone, the left hand has its zone. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little vague. I'd stay away from it, honestly, because it's not gonna resonate, if it's not gonna resonate with everyone, I'd be careful.
Yeah, but there's a push.
Let's carry on because we have the class upstairs is about to start, so I wanna wrap this up, okay? So, alright, visualize a turn and do the motions. Now, we could actually visualize a turn. Alright, Mr. Student, we are coming down the road, we're still parked, by the way. We're coming down the road, and we're gonna make a right turn. What do we wanna do? Okay, I wanna take my foot off the gas, I wanna start covering the brake, making a speed adjustment before I get to the turn, right? Your speed adjustment happens not in the turn, before the turn. So whatever speed you feel you need to make, the speed adjustment you need to make before the turn, you do it. And now you focus on your turning, and yeah, maybe you're still covering the brake, maybe you're applying the brake, maybe not, depending on the situation. You're looking at the corners, no pedestrians jarring out, all that stuff, right? And now what are you doing with your hands? Alright, so now you're probably, would you do a hand over hand for a right turn on Steinway and 34? Yeah, I don't think you're using push-pull there. That's a pretty sharp 90, that's a 90-degree turn with very limited turning radius. You're not using push-pull there. You don't have time to do all that. It's too much right?
Yeah.
You need to do hand over hand there. So there you explain, okay, a situation like this, hand over hand makes the most sense. Boom, you see the recovery? Quick, fluid, okay? Fluid. A push-pull is like, it's too much. It's like, you get what I'm saying? So that's a situation where it wouldn't work. And then you show situations where push-pull may work, right? And now you've given them ammunition, you're giving them experience relevant to situations, okay? So, Right, so we have here,
Blind spot.
blind spot. Okay? They're almost ready to pull out the traffic, but shouldn't we teach them blind spots now?
Yeah,
The thing
before
that I
you-
was not taught, believe it or not, right? So let's teach it right off the bat, because for them to pull out into traffic, they have to deal with their first blind spot experience, which is pulling out into traffic. So let's just teach blind spots now. Let's just get it out of the way. Okay? Ask them to look in the 3 mirrors to recognize where their blind spots are. By the way, do we all know where in the manual there's a beautiful picture that shows blind spot? Section 1.1 has a beautiful picture, because pictures are worth 1,000 words. And I want you to save your breath, save your energy as much as possible. Use the manual, please. There's places in the manual that most of these things have a picture or a diagram. Or if you feel like they are not getting it, or you want to give them some homework for tonight, Mr. Student, tonight I want you to reread section 1.2, and because this is everything we covered today, and that's going to keep you up to speed until next time. Right? Isn't that nice? Okay? So, continuing on. Each car has each car has a slightly different size blind spot. Yeah, I know. In some cases, you may want to get out of the car and walk around their blind spots. Guess what's a good idea if you're feeling a little sleepy, or your legs, right? We all know it. You know, in that car seat, your legs start to get. Now maybe a good opportunity to move your legs again. Maybe you get out of the car and you walk around the car showing them their blind spots.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need to, maybe you don't want to that time. But at least
It's the best part.
that's right. Yeah, it's fun. It's
Visual.
actually, isn't that fun? Actually, I think it's kind of fun for them and probably for you. Maybe it's like, now you see me, now you don't. It's like you're playing a little
They
life.
get it faster with the visual.
Yeah. You know, so it's like, you see me? Do you see me? You know, have the window open so you can hear them. Do you see me? Do you not see me? All right, there's your blind spot. Now turn your head into that area. Oh, now I see you. Okay, now move to the left side. Or maybe you don't need to do it on the street side because it's not necessarily so safe. It looks kind of ridiculous when you're on the street doing that. Maybe there's cars coming, so now you don't have to, you can rely on the cars. All right? So, do you see the car? Do you see the car? I don't see the car. Look to your left. There's the car. Okay, another car's coming. Do you see it? Do you see it? Yes, I see it. When you don't see it, look to the left. All right, boom. So now do it a few times so that they get comfortable with that blind spot. Some of them will show them where they need to physically turn their head. Don't assume that they know even which direction to look. Okay? At this point, 2 more minutes, guys. At this point, we have prepared for a lot of the situations, frustrations that come from learning to drive. Would you agree? Would you all agree that at this point, if you went through all these things, you've covered, please, one more minute, I got my video going, you ruined my video. All right. Edit, cut. At this point, you have prepared for a lot of the issues and frustrations that come with learning to drive, and in the process, made a safer experience for you. Because this is not only for them, all this stuff, this is to make your life easier and less frustrating and less stressful. Because yes, I do understand how stressful it is to put your life out there with somebody who doesn't know what the hell they're doing. I get it. This is why this stuff is valuable, because you can, it's not a golden rule, it's not going to cover all its situations, but you can eliminate a lot of the potential issues and scary situations if you go through these exercises. Once out on the road, this is now another important thing. Once you're out on the road, right? At any point you feel the student hasn't grasped one of these foundational principles, you have them pull over in a parking lane and you go back to the basic exercise. So if it's your student, or if it's a student that's been doing training with someone else, wouldn't that be a good idea to do? Oh, turns are horrible. You don't tell them that. But you are thinking to yourself, wow, this person still hasn't gotten turns. You know, they've taken X amount of lessons, because again, you never want to badmouth or make the student feel like their previous time with an instructor was not valuable. Because guess what? If you give the idea that something where they learned for the last 10 seconds was wrong, or they should have been doing better at this by now, you just made that other 10 lessons seem worthless.
Unless it was from another school.
Very important. If it's from another school, honestly, you still don't go so heavy on the other school. You keep it, you know what I mean? I don't want you to bad mouth really another school. You just show the difference, and automatically you've lifted yourself up. So, if you have now, if you've gotten a new student from another student, from another school, another student, from another instructor, and they're not doing their turns well, what would you do? What would you do?
Robin is there.
Literally, what can you do now?
Guys, just sign it and then she going around when you guys get a chance.
You
to
would fold them over, and you'd refer to what? Number 8. What would you do? You'd pull out your steering wheel, which you're going to be getting in the next few days, and you take it back to basics. Make sure that they got the basics. And now, okay, oh yeah, now I'm feeling better. It's okay, let's get back out of the way. You get what I'm saying? So at any point, anything that is here, that you feel that they haven't gotten yet, or for some reason it didn't sink in, pull them back over, go back to the basics. Any questions on all this? Yes, sir.
How long would you say it's a fair amount of time to spend covering all that?
My question, it depends on the student.
Or more or less?
If the person has a lot of experience, did you see how some things literally took 5 seconds?
I spend about 20 minutes, and sometimes we go to half an hour. If I see that they're enjoying it, that
it's all relative.
I'll take half an hour. But
Yeah.
I explain
You know how you know when you're ready?
But
when
some
you're done?
of them, they begin to sometimes they want to drive.
Why don't you ask them? Why don't you?
No, I do.
You set them up. What you say? What are you talking about? Are you talking about gauges? What are you talking about?
No.
Example. What's an example?
Going through the whole process.
Okay.
The things
So
that
ask
you
them a question. If they get it right, you say, "Great. Do you feel comfortable with this?" And you move on. If they don't get it right, then that means that you need to go over it again. Or at least they know. They can't complain and say, "Oh, I know this," because they just answered the question wrong. It's on them. Always a question. If they get it right, terrific. You see, you got it. Are you ready for us to move on? And now it's time to move. Oh, all right. Do you know what you did wrong there? If they got it wrong, would you like to spend more time in it? They'll say yes or no.
Where students may
That's it.
get frustrated and feel like I just want to drive is if we're talking too much and not asking enough questions. If we change the same information, the same knowledge, and we put it into question form, which is forcing the student to be engaging and create an interactive experience, then nobody's being taken for a ride. They're not going to feel like they're wasting time because they're learning, they're engaging. When they're hearing too much theory, they're hearing too much statements, too much, this is how you do it, this is it, da-da-da, people zone out.
Instructors that like to hear only their own voice. We know who they are. Those are the ones that we get the complaints.
Yeah, put it into the form of a question. Most of those situations, they disappear by themselves. All right? So I'm going to stop the tape because I think we covered enough. And now Tony's coming in. We don't want to upset Tony.
Unless you want to sleep for the next 6 hours.